Yo, what's going on YouTube? I am Germ here. Just a couple of minutes ago, I mean, we're right on top of the story. This was literally 4 minutes ago. The LCS tweeted this out, an update on the 2023 LCS Summer Split. We're going to be going over this article. It's kind of lengthy. I got through most of it. I didn't get through it all the way. I was like, started reading it, and I was like, we might as well just pop it on for a video, because obviously this is something we're going to be making a video about. But if you missed it, over the past couple of days, the LCS players and the Players Association did a vote. Apparently, the vote passed with overwhelming majority that the players were going to walk out, that the LCS players, the current 50 starting players in the LCS, were not going to be playing the LCS season at the beginning. None of them were going to be taking part in, any games that Riot was going to be hosting. But the LCS responded to this by telling teams, hey, we don't care if your 50 starting players or whatever are walking out. You still have an obligation to field the roster. You still have an obligation to have a team ready to go. And, some of the things that leaked out was like, oh, if whoever doesn't field a team for week one is going to be fined like $50,000 or something crazy like that. And this, just kind of led to a whole bunch of different rumors and speculation going on. I know, I think I have it somewhere on here. I thought I had my Twitter pulled up that Travis Gafford reportedly said that Riot is suspending all rank requirements for potential players during the LCS walkout because, Riot was, I'm sure LCS teams were worried, hey, we're not going to be able to find players because, hey, all the best players are already on our teams, and if we're subtracting the 50 best players and we just kicked out a bunch of academy players last week, we might not even be able to get players that meet the rank requirements and stuff like that. And so many players, I'm sure, were rejecting the LCS offers because they didn't want to, be in the bad graces of the LCS players that just walked out for the NA minor league system or academy system or the lower tier ecosystem or whatever. It'd be really a stab in the back to then take their spots in the LCS. So this whole craziness had been going on and happening. And again, this ultimately led us up to LCS and their public response to it to their fans, where they said there's been a lot of discussion over the past few days about the NACL and the LCS player walkout. I know many of you have questions about where Riot stands, so they wanted to share. They said, first and foremost, they support their players, but they also support teams, and they believe more than ever in the LCS, which, is good. Who knows? Whatever. They said they also believe in a Tier 2 development system, which, again, is great, but they just don't believe in their partner teams necessarily supporting this, which is obviously not how other people align, and not even how Riot had aligned historically until the LCS owners kind of strong-armed them into changing their position. Academy teams have always been a thing in the LCS. Yes, there aren't academy teams in all the other leagues. Like over in Europe, the ERL system works very, very well without academy teams. But in China and Korea, most, if not all teams have an academy team, and that has worked to be a very, very, very strong and robust kind of tier 2 development system. I think the only reason the ERLs have worked so well is just with the geographical setup of Europe and how all that's worked out, when that's not how things are set up right now in North America. Now, obviously, by argument, a lot of people's argument would be, hey, the collegiate system is set up perfectly to maybe be that tier 2 or that development league or whatever, and we even see that in a lot of professional sports, but we're not there yet, and, the collegiate system and scene has a long way to go. But they said to make sure they live up to, so there is some big news in here, actually. So they said they believe in the tier 2 development system. Maybe I want to say, I can't remember how, I'm going to have to control F. They said they're adding, okay, right here. They said they believe in their tier 2 development system. Riot has successfully architected a tier 2 ecosystem in other regions. It will take some shifts and trade-offs to get there to help the NA scene. Through this transition, we've decided to give our NACL partner, Rally Cry, an additional $300,000 in order to jumpstart the 2023 NACL season next week. This funding is in addition to the revenue share to the NACL teams we announced last week. They're going to be giving the teams money. They're going to be allowing them parts of like the Twitch subscriptions to the channel and stuff like that. And then apparently they're giving them this additional $300,000 as well, which is, great. Obviously, those teams and orgs, need money and should be financially supported by Riot, because obviously they're going to eventually reap the rewards as this contributes to the long-term success of the LCS, which obviously Riot profits off of esports, both directly and indirectly, or at least makes money out of, who knows how much is profit or not profit or whatever, but I think it's pretty safe to say they profit off esports, at least indirectly. So yeah, they're doing these things. Obviously, it's the other thing is like, okay, well, you want to throw all this money at the NACL. Why not just keep all your teams in the NACL still? But whatever. Who knows? I don't know. This is what they've decided to do. And it's something else is like, we know that Riot's plan had been to keep the LCS teams with having NACL teams and academy teams throughout the whole year. So now they're really just changing things up every week. They're like, okay, well, you don't want to have NACL teams anymore? Fine. You don't have to have an academy team anymore. And then it's like, oh, well, now these teams aren't enough funded? Okay, fine. Here's $300,000 more. And you're like, we're literally just making up the rules as we go. We're moving the goalposts all the time. We're literally changing the rules week by week. And to me, that kind of probably shows some signs of poor management or poor leadership or just kind of weak leadership overall. That, hey, if this side makes a demand, okay, fine, we'll do that. Okay, fine, we'll do this. Okay, fine, we'll do this. Okay, fine, we'll do this. Like, obviously, there needs to be some compromisation and some collective bargaining and, things like this. This is very, very normal. But in the middle of the season, making this many changes day to day, hour to hour, week to week, kind of weird. But anyway, they said, to make sure we live up to the quality we've promised the fans, here's the big news. Biggest news from this whole video. We are delaying the LCS season for 2 weeks. Now, there had been some rumors about this, obviously, because, again, they were saying we're going to try and field, replacement-level players. And my question was, okay, you're gonna do replacement-level rosters, and Riot's really going to claim that this is the peak of NA kind of League of Legends esports competition. We're really going to do cinematics of, solo queue Joe 69 against freaking Weed Blazer 420 in the top lane. It's a Diamond 1 against a freaking Diamond 3 top lane. We're going to do all these badass cinematics, and we're going to have the full production and the cast and the crew and the casters and everybody for games that everyone knows are not the peak of North American competition, that everyone knows are an absolute farce. That would be ridiculous. That would be a huge joke. To start the season without our full-level players just makes absolutely no sense. Again, it's not totally unprecedented. Apparently, the MLB and NFL, they've had replacement players before, but I don't ever think that those things were wild successes or anything like that. So it just doesn't make sense. This needs to come to a resolution. They need to sit down. They need to negotiate. They need to talk about things. They need to come to some kind of conclusion before we make an even more, kind of a bigger mockery out of the LCS than it already has been as of late. So all that said, a top priority for us is always the fans. While last week we immediately put in place contingency plans to begin the LCS season on Thursday, we ultimately decided that it would not hold true to our values that Riot's esports offers our players and fans a showcase for the best competitive League of Legends. It's absolutely true. That's just how it should be. That just makes sense. The fact that they were even going to try, the fact that they even attempted to host the LCS this Thursday, I still think is a big L for them, but at least they didn't fully go through with it. But just, acting like you didn't try to do it is just not fully truthful. And they're not saying they didn't do that, but just being like, oh, we decided it didn't hold up with our values. Okay, why didn't you decide that before you tried to, not uphold your values? Because they're stupid. But nothing but putting the best players in North America on the stage at Riot Games Arena is acceptable. Again, maybe you're finding that it was harder than you thought it was going to be, because at one point, a couple days ago, you did think it was acceptable, and now you think it's not acceptable. Again, you're just changing your mind day to day. So we informed LCSPA leadership today that we will delay the LCS season for the next 2 weeks. Hopefully, this 2-week window will give us time for productive dialogue. The LCS will not be penalizing teams for not fielding roster during this 2-week period to allow everyone space to focus on constructive dialogue. We're doing our best to ensure LCS employees, contractors, and others supporting the LCS are not negatively impacted. Delaying beyond the 2-week window would make it nearly impossible to run a legitimate competition. In that case, we'd be prepared to cancel the LCS summer season. Carrying this forward, if the LCS summer season is canceled, this will also eliminate LCS teams from qualifying for 2023 Worlds. I want to be clear, this is not an outcome we'd want, but it's unfortunately the reality of ensuring we run a fair, competitive global system. Now, that's kind of interesting, because in a way, that's putting the ball back in the players' court. It's like, okay, you guys want to delay the season, you guys want to maybe even cancel the season, that's fine, but you're not going to be going to Worlds. So, maybe some players are like, oh, hey, well, if I'm not going to be going to Worlds, then that might change things for me. But I think you also have to remember you're talking to LCS players who usually their experience, at least recently at Worlds, says we're going to go to Worlds, we're going to go 1-5 or 2-4, be stressed out, not have very much fun, and then come home. So maybe, losing a world spot isn't even the end of the world for a lot of these LCS players, especially if it means, making things better for their league and their profession overall in the long run. I don't know. It's not like there's teams in the LCS that legitimately have a chance of doing something at Worlds this year. So should they really care that much? I don't know. Obviously, some players are going to care a lot, but I don't think it's necessarily that logical, to care that much about Worlds, at least at this stage in the LCS. So the LCSPA has made several requests. Here's how we've addressed them. I want to address the 5 demands from the LCSPA with responses that we also provided the LCSPA today. So I think it's actually pretty interesting. Institute a Valorant-style promotion and relegation system between the LCS and NACL. Expanding the league in order to implement a Valorant-style visitor slot system would run counter to our existing partnership model with the LCS. With the 10 LCS teams who paid $10 million per slot to compete in the league, it would dilute LCS teams' equity and put considerable downward pressure on the amount of revenue, our league revenue pool, that we share with the teams. More teams in the pool would dilute the revenue, so we share 50% of our teams with under the partnership model. Given the challenging macroeconomic climate, expanding the league is not a good idea at this time. And again, that's not really an answer. Yes, they're saying, hey, our current system doesn't support this, but that's because you implemented a dog shit system, 7, 6, 8 years ago, however, whatever it was. And again, if you thought that system was better, you would have also done it with Valorant. The fact that you did a different thing with Valorant is because you think it's better. So yeah, I don't know. Obviously, what this person is saying is not expanding the league. They're saying having 2 separate leagues that go between each other. They're not saying, hey, make a 20-team LCS. They're saying make a 10 and 10, have that, and maybe you'd have to share some revenue. But I don't get why you'd have to share the LCS revenue with the NACL or the secondary league rosters. I don't really think that's how most other leagues work. But again, obviously they have contracts and things in place, which again is just, hey, admit that you made a dog shit system, and that's why things are bad right now. Instead of just kind of, I get this like a PR, bullshit legal team answer, but whatever. Riot guarantees LCS minimum contracts for the following year for 5 players who win NACL Summer Finals. To me, that's just kind of a stupid thing. It doesn't even really make sense to me. Guaranteed LCS contracts for winners aren't a necessary component of a healthy developmental league. LCS teams are in best position to decide who should get a shot. We will continue to discuss initiatives to connect LCS to NACL players like we have in place with Scouting Grounds. Players should rise to the LCS based on merit, potential, and team fit rather than an artificially forced mechanism. I believe that, and it doesn't even make sense because say no teams wanted one of the players. How would you decide which team had to sign the player? It's just stupid. It doesn't even make sense. If you think about it for more than 2 seconds, or maybe if you even think about it for a full 2 seconds, it's just a stupid thing. It doesn't make sense. I don't even get why they threw that in there. Institute a 3 out of 5 continuity rule to provide players on release NACL rosters first priority in maintaining their slots in the upcoming NACL season if a majority continue to compete together. Teams provide greater continuity and structure, and therefore we will continue with our policy of slot ownership residing with organizations rather than players, which again, that's fair. I think it's kind of another weird, not even fully feasible ask from the NALCSPA. Riot commit to a revenue pool for player salaries of $300,000 per NACL team per year. This ask is for multiple millions in subsidies from the NACL that simply isn't sustainable, and to be brutally honest, it shouldn't be necessary. We have other tier 2 leagues around the world which thrive on their own, and we believe the NACL can get to that place too. What we'll do is help the NA scene through this transition. So as I mentioned above, they're adding the extra $300,000 and allow LCS orgs to partner with affiliates for cost sharing. We've seen examples of partnerships between pro teams and tier 2 teams across the globe result in a greater upward mobility of pros and more sustainable tier 2 ecosystems. This is why we already and will continue to allow affiliate relationships to exist between LCS and NACL. For example, Golden Guardians and AOE. Moving forward together, at the end here. So pretty much at the end of the day, they said, fuck all the things you're asking for, but we do hope we can sit down and have some kind of dialogue. And they said, hey, you got 2 weeks to figure this thing out. Otherwise, the season's going to be canceled and you guys ain't going to Worlds. So obviously, it seems like from the LCS and Riot's perspective, there's not a whole lot of compromising or negotiating to be going on. It seems like, hey, here's your $300,000. Now you can either shut up or we can cancel this thing. Don't know how the LCS orgs or how the Players Association is going to respond to this, but yeah, I don't know. I think we're getting closer and closer to not having an LCS summer split, but yeah, that would be pretty crazy, especially to not have the LCS at Worlds. But that's pretty much it for this video today, guys. Hopefully catch you in the next one. But until then, peace.